The land down under has never been easier to reach. United Airlines has more flights between the U.S. and Australia than any other U.S. airline, so you can fly nonstop to destinations like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Explore dazzling cities, savor the very best of Aussie cuisine, and get up close and personal with the wildlife. Who doesn't want to hold a koala? Go to united.com/Australia to book your adventure.
Hey, this is Tim from Focus, and I wanted to give you an update on a reunion show. I reached out to Jeff from Unashamed, and they said yes. So it will be a double reunion. The two originators of Spirit-Filled Hardcore, April 6th in Orange County, California. There'll be 12 other bands playing that day. And there's going to be a flyer dropping on November 8th that will give you all the details, and I believe the tickets are going to go on sale November 10th at 9 a.m. So you're going to want to get these because this is going to be a big event. Both bands, we got some special surprises, and you're going to want to see some of the other bands that are playing with us. It's going to be a great event. Hope to see all those familiar faces out there. Can't wait. April 6th, be there.
All right. Season 4, episode 17. We're calling this one Go Vegan for Shelter Farm Sanctuary. Woo-hoo. I'm Mick, all the way from Parkersburg, West Virginia, with my good friend Wiley Willis.
Yeah, I'm
from Chicago, Illinois.
There you go. Yep, you got it. I'm trying to fight off this cold fever chills I'm getting here. There was a time, I don't know if you noticed, there was a time I had to leave the interview because I was
what
like,
happened?
Dude, like my shoulders were shaking uncontrollably. Like, it's weird. I get this really cold chill and then I get really hot. It's not gonna be good.
Nope. But you made it through the interview, which was really, really good.
Yes, that is true.
So
it was a good interview. It
was a good. Yeah. I'm excited for folks to hear it.
It was weird at first. I like all interviews that I don't know the people or that I'm like starstruck. Like, you know, when we do the big hardcore ones.
Yeah.
It takes me a really long time to ease into it, but still, this was a little awkward at first, so bear with me, you know. But we got into it, and I think we started getting really good halfway in.
Yeah. It's a lot of good stuff we talked about in this one. So
yeah,
of course, seeing that the name of the episode's Go Vegan, we definitely talk about veganism, so that's good. We talk about the sanctuary, which we won't take any thunder from that. We want them to be able to share about that. So yeah, it just a really good. We learned a lot.
We did a ton.
Yeah, which is good.
A ton, a lot. A ton, a lot, a ton, a lot of.
Yeah. So
I mean, I really want to say it, but I guess we can just bust in and they can hear what she has to say if you want to do that.
Yeah, let's do that because I know how we are. We'll keep going and then we'll kind of give away the good stuff. So we don't want to give away any good stuff. So we should just cut straight to it.
Yeah, let's drop Youth of Today No More into this real quick before we get into it.
All right.
Cool.
No more. No more. No more.
All right. Coffee and Hardcore Podcast is so honored to have Shelter Farm Sanctuary on this episode. On your social media, you describe your sanctuary as an ethical, vegan, woman-run, nonprofit farmed animal sanctuary. You're also located in Arcadia, Florida. Now, all the listeners on our podcast know how much we love Florida.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, let me ask you real quick. How hot is it in Florida right now?
It's really hot. It's,
Yeah.
I don't know, probably in the 90s still.
What? It's 101 here in Chicago.
Okay.
It's
Well,
bad.
I don't know. It could be hotter for sure.
Yeah, I would think so.
It's miserable. You walk outside and you're sweating. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes, I do know. You swim in your swimming in your clothes.
Yeah, it's not cool.
But you shared your story on your social media, and that's what really opened my eyes and hooked me to this. Like I was glued to it. I thought what you had to say was super interesting. So why don't you introduce yourself and let's kick this off.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm Jenny Miller Presley. I am the founder and executive director of Shelter Farm Sanctuary. There are about 85 animals here at Shelter,
wow.
all rescued from, slaughter, neglect, abuse, abandonment situations. And I also live here at the sanctuary with my son. And yeah, ethically vegan is something that's important to me. As someone who has dealt with a lot of painful things in life, I don't ever want to cause pain if I can help it. So that's the ethical part for me, is just aligning my actions with my general feeling and beliefs and things like that. So yes, we are in Florida. I apologize.
No, it's all good.
I never expected to live in Florida. I was married to someone who worked on boats, and so this was a logical place. I've lived here since 2006.
There is still time to get out.
Yes, there is.
Well, not really, because you have the sanctuary. So
right, someday I will get out, but not.
I'm sure the animals make it worthwhile.
They do, yeah.
Mick, why don't you get into it? Why don't you kick off with our first question?
Yeah,
our first real question.
First real question. So part of your story is that you grew up in like the skateboard culture and the straight edge hardcore scene, and that kind of followed right behind it. What was life like that in a young age, being inspired or and in love with skateboarding?
So I grew up in a little town called Englewood, Ohio, and Englewood is about 20 minutes north of Dayton.
Okay.
I, in the mid 90s, was lucky enough to kind of, I had an upbringing that was less than typical and was pretty hard. And so, I at a pretty young age was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, and getting into situations that were unsafe and all sorts of things like that. So I met someone who became my partner, who still is one of the best and nicest and kindest guys I know. And he lived and breathed skateboarding. Dayton is Alien Workshop territory. So, he worked at Cow Skates, which was a big distributor then. And all of his friends worked at Workshop and all the shops downtown and all that kind of stuff. And so, wanting to be anywhere but my home, I spent a lot of time in Dayton with him and with our friends and just kind of like absorbing all of that culture. The people who were there at the time were really talented, and the general vibe was just like, just do everything you possibly can to like create, and so it was video and music and art and creating with their bodies and all of these things. And so I just kind of sucked all of that up. I was just learning photography and getting into darkroom work and that kind of stuff. So I having been through painful things, I held a lot of pain that I saw in other people. You kind of recognize your own. Yeah. And so I saw these guys. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I saw these guys, who held pain like I did, and who used skateboarding as like a vehicle to kind of shed some of it. They would just completely destroy their bodies and be bleeding and tossing boards, and like just the buildup of frustration, that then it was all just for this one cathartic moment of the trick.
Yeah.
And then they would just ride away from it, and I could see them lighter. And so for me, I was like, holy, can I cuss? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I was like, holy shit, like maybe someday I'll have that. Like I'm not coordinated. I couldn't ride a board to save my life. But I saw it and I had hope,
Yeah, that's
And
a really
so-
cool thing to take away from that. I like that.
Yeah. And just like, that there were so many different kinds of people who loved the sport, but also loved each other and were really open and encouraging. And, just like you could be a person in this place and exist and belong. Right. And that's what everybody's looking for, I think.
Yeah.
So
It's a great answer. It is.
So from there, I met a lot of people who were in hardcore and in bands and things like that. And in that part of the scene, and it was, it was different. There were different levels of, there would be the skateboard kids would be at parties, and then the hardcore kids would be at shows, and they would kind of intermix here and there. There were a couple of clubs in Dayton that were like, there was the Goth Club, that was 1470, and then there was the Asylum, and everybody in Courage Crew worked at the Asylum as bouncers, and so
Okay.
everybody was
So
they
stay
would
away from
play
there.
hardcore shows there. Yeah.
I was gonna say Dayton was like a hotbed for the Courage Crew in the 90s.
And I can speak to that. I spent a lot of time with those guys. Yeah. So at that time it was like 12 Tribes was just forming. I think I met Adam right before 12 Tribes kind of became a band. I went to high school with some of those guys that were in 12 Tribes. I went to high school with some guys who were in Courage Crew. The towns around Dayton are all very small, so everybody kind of intermingles in between. And so they were playing shows at like Culture and Morning Again. They were kind of both back and forth from Florida to Ohio, and Blood Has Been Shed and some of those kinds of bands were all kind of playing around at the same time at the VFW and the Knights of Columbus.
Knights of Columbus.
Yeah. And then of course Cincinnati was really close by, so Bogart's shows and things like that were the bigger ones. But yeah, I think I don't know. Do you want to ask another question? We're just kind of going.
No, it's fine.
I was going to ask if, since you were in Inglewood, did you ever go to Skatopia in Meigs County?
Yes, I have been there. Yes.
Okay, were you as scared as I was?
It's wild. It's a wild place.
Why is it wild?
It's it's pure chaos. Like
Terrifying.
yes, there's
Yeah. There's
from
no
what
safe place to stand.
no.
Yeah.
No,
Because
and
the skateboards are flying everywhere or what?
it's
Yeah,
like out in
very
the middle of
small-
nowhere.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll send you a video later.
Yes, please.
I will.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
and
jump
then,
into. Go ahead.
There was
Go
a park
ahead.
in Middletown that a lot of people kind of went back and forth between, and then of course like Dayton, there were spots
yeah.
everywhere that everybody kind of hung out at.
I'm gonna jump into this next question.
Okay, do it. Let's do it.
It sort of ties in with this, I would say. So
Okay, good.
you bring up in your little speech thing on, I don't know, what would you call that? Not a speech. What do you call that on like
It's
your
called-
comment, right?
It's called word vomit.
Well, I liked it and it got us all together. So
All right, cool. Yeah.
So you bring up in your word vomit that
Yeah.
that the hardcore scene came with a dash of toxic masculinity, everybody's favorite, right? In the 90s and early 2000s. You stated that women in hardcore and straight edge commonly were considered like, quote unquote coat racks, more like an accessory to their boyfriends. And I could say I definitely saw that in the 90s. I know this sounds like a therapy, like how does that make you feel? But I really want to know how you felt about that being, a woman in hardcore.
I'm glad that the therapy is coming into this because I think a lot of us are still in therapy about it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously, that was the era of Courage Crew and of, there were some other crews, as well, but, that scene, was very much about, I'm trying to find a good way to put this. We can cut off all my hemming and hawing in between.
It's all good.
So as a kid, I smoked weed and, did some things. I drank some and I, did whatever. I had a friend whose dad kind of supplied us at 13, 14 with cigarettes and weed and alcohol and whatever else we could possibly want, and that household was preferable to my household, which might tell you something. And when I started hanging out in Dayton and kind of moved away from that, I kind of realized that I had never liked smoking weed. I had never liked drinking. I need to have more control over myself than that, just as a human.
Yeah.
And so straight edge, of course, appealed to me because it was a way to be powerful enough to say, oh, I'm part of this thing. I don't do that. It was like, because prior to that, it's like, if you don't drink, then you get all the stuff, right? Like, why not? What are you doing? Have a drink, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it appealed to me. I thought it was exciting, because of the things I saw, in straight edge. And I did, there were a couple of years where I was like, I'm straight edge, whatever. And I can't tell you how many times I heard, girls can't be straight edge. Straight edge is for girls.
That's for real.
Oh,
that's
so many
insane.
times. So many times. And so it eventually, just became the kind of thing where I was like, well, clearly I don't belong here. I never called myself straight edge again, even though I don't do any of that. But that was the general feeling was, girls don't belong in this. And I began to see that my value was in what I could contribute to another person, not that I had value just inherently as a human of my own. And we got called coat racks. We got handed the jackets, while everybody was out picking up change and head stomping. And it was, it kind of felt good because it was like we were the girlfriends, but we had like our own, we would talk to each other and like be friends. So it wasn't like we were completely left out, but it was like I can count on one hand the number of times any of those guys asked me what I was into or what I was learning in school or, who I was as a person. And a lot of that was hierarchical. So within JC and I dated for we lived together for about 2 years, but we hung out before that for a year or so. And so I was at a lot of the meetings and a lot of the events and things like that. And he was leading those. And so I saw the approach, which was very much, I have a friend he's super intelligent and really socially conscious and incredibly empathetic and always has been. And being in Courage Crew, that was ridiculed and beaten out of him.
I can see that.
And he's kind of recovered from that. We were just talking the other night about our therapies and things like that. But I saw that happen over and over. It was a very the hazing and the the intent was to make people strong, right? They wanted to make each other strong and have impart good habits and foster brotherhood and all of that. But the practices were really damaging and affected the way they treated women and affected the way they treated each other. And it was difficult to watch a lot of that. It was difficult to, see kids get the life smacked out of them. And it was difficult to be in situations that were unsafe because it was, that was the era was like, if you're smoking a cigarette next to me, I'm going to beat you up.
Yeah.
It's like, it was Rolanda Show era. I don't know if you guys saw that, but that was the general feeling back then. And being in some of those situations was really tough. But it also, I felt like, well, I don't really feel like I am comfortable anywhere else. So this seems kind of okay, I don't really have a lot of other people. And I'm at least respected here in a way that's like, oh, well, that's his lady, so make sure she's comfortable and leave her alone. Don't talk to her because, that's not allowed. But she looks good sitting over there, right? So it was when you are with someone who's important in a group, it feels like you're important by default, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Like when I do the podcast with Mick, I'm important by default.
Exactly. Makes you feel good, right? Makes you feel good to belong.
Yeah. Thank you, Mick.
But yeah, I was a girl, so I was never included as a person.
It's so rough.
I don't necessarily know that I wanted to be more included, and there was the hierarchy. So at least a few people could talk to me and be interested in me and in general,
Yeah, that sounds like a legit gang or the mafia or something. That's crazy.
Yeah. yes, there were a lot of those kinds of practices. And I will say that a lot of things about it were really good for some of those guys, because they did come from, places where they didn't have support, they didn't have families that were around, they didn't have, resources. And so obviously they needed someone to be close to, and they did have, like kickball games that were fun, and barbecues and like all of that kind of stuff too. But there was also just the undercurrent of violence and the undercurrent of, disrespect if you believed in other things. And I guess in any organization it's like there's good and bad, but that's what straight edge became to me. And that made it hard for me to want to like it. And hardcore kind of followed the same way.
Yeah.
Because they're intertwined and they're all
understandably, yeah.
Yeah.
See, because I remember like the 90s and playing shows in Ohio. And we kind of talked about this last week or on the episode with Ankle Biter, because we were talking about shifting from playing shows in Ohio and it eventually moved to Pennsylvania. And one of the main reasons why is because of the Courage Crew and the whole tough guy mentality. Because I talked a little bit about like Ohio and that area in the Midwest was kind of so tough guy, and we just didn't want to be a part of that because it was so. There were so many friends of ours that we would hear, well, so and so broke Edge, and so they were all going to show up at the club he worked at to confront him because he broke Edge, and we're like, what? Like, why? Why would he? This dude's like 20 some years old. Like, what? You're gonna show up and beat him up because he broke Edge? Like, what is going on? And it just was so like, anytime we would ever play in Ohio, it's like something stupid would always happen, or people would show up mad at us. Courage Crew would show up mad at us because we didn't want to associate anymore. And I get the whole like, because of that, just toxic nastiness, not wanting to be a part of, because I didn't want to be like, I remember after leaving Zayo, and then there was a time frame there where I didn't want to listen to anything hardcore just because of the bad taste from it. It just seemed like out of the 90s there was this whole 2000s era of just tough guy stupidity, and I just didn't want to be I didn't want to be associated with it, a part of it. It took a long time before I started listening to things again because of just the bad taste that was there. So I can only imagine, from your perspective, like how that would be. That's completely worse. I didn't have to deal with that end of things. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least I was a dude walking in, and there'd be a different level. But I can't imagine being treated as not basically less than human.
Yeah. And I will say, I wasn't a major player in that scene. I was again an accessory. I was somebody's girlfriend, and there were a few girls around, but they were girls who, either were with somebody else at some point or were like tough as nails and like just on a level that, me having very little self-confidence and just like sense of self in general, like I couldn't even imagine being those girls. And then I went to college in Kentucky at UK, and so when I got there it was a lot different. I was like, there were girls hanging around, and like everyone was talking to them, and they actually, I was like, who are they with? Like, they didn't belong to anybody. It was crazy. Right. People were just like acting like they were people.
Yeah, and, they were their own people.
They were their own people. my friend Stacy was like working for Initial Records doing like street stuff, and I saw her, and this was before I even know her, and I was just like, oh my God, like look at, she just like, she's not even with anyone, like she's just doing this, and like they love her, you know what I mean? Like she was friends with everyone, and knew all the bands, and was just like a regular girl, and it was like
Right.
I had no idea that was a possibility, to just be your own self and be a part. You didn't have to like belong to anyone. So I did, once I got to Kentucky, I started to see some different behavior in hardcore and in straight edge in general. So that was, it didn't necessarily make
What
me
do you
love
mean
it
by
then,
different behavior?
just like, it was in general a
Better atmosphere?
more inclusive scene, like it was heavy on veganism, and there were a lot of different kinds of people. It wasn't jock culture, and it wasn't everybody was okay to be there. It was it was Crazy Fest, and like that kind of stuff where
How
it
it
just
should
felt
be.
like you were just walking in, and like there were all your friends.
Right.
Nobody was like getting stabbed. It was great.
For just thinking differently.
Yeah.
That's
And
crazy.
that's, I be going to college and kind of like coming into that place in life where you realize that there are like social justice causes that need your attention, and things like that. Like that was the right place to be, to kind of come into that as well. So yeah.
Cool. I was interested in your story. You talk about not wanting to eat animals at a younger age, and you would wrestle with your family on those issues. How hard was it at a younger age, and what was the struggle like for you in your household?
I think I was probably 6 or 8 when I was like,
Oh, wow.
I don't want to eat this. And I think I'm also a teacher, and I work with really young kids. And I think that young kids love animals inherently. And then what we do as a culture is we normalize violence against animals. And so we tell them that, you can love animals and eat them and kill them and torture them. We kind of pass that message down.
That confusing message. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I didn't like meat. I didn't like thinking that I was eating something with a face. I just didn't, I didn't think that was okay. And obviously, when I was a kid, there were not options for, there were no vegan chicken nuggets at that point. So, I was vegetarian-ish for most of my life. And my parents, like my mom she understood, she wasn't oblivious to my points. But I definitely had my grandfather telling me that children in Africa were starving and that I needed to eat my chicken, It was like, I said, send it to them, And so
what was that response like?
That was, it was silence, but all of my aunts and uncles were there at the time and were like rejoicing in their heads. They told me later that was like, they were like,
That's
what? So yeah, it was just, like I just didn't want it. And I went through a lot of different periods of like I didn't understand as a woman what the dairy industry means for females of other species for like a ridiculously long time. Like it took me way too long to really fully grasp that the ways that I felt affected as a woman were like the exact ways that these animals are being exploited, you know?
Yeah.
And so fully vegan didn't come for me until later on. And part of that was like lifestyle stuff, you know, you live with somebody who eats meat, and it's hard to have 3 different diets. And then, you know, I made the decision to start the sanctuary. And you know, that was kind of the point where I was like, all right, I'm all done. You know, I don't want to ever consume anybody, or anybody's parts or anybody's anything anymore. It's unnecessary. You know, it's just, we have so many options now. I remember in college, like there would be the one health food store where you could get like a tempeh gross BLT and
Yes.
like, and the tofu cuties, and that
or
was
like
like
the Boca hot dogs that tasted like rubber. Ugh.
Yes.
So much better
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, it was hard for me to commit to that, but I did, you know, like I went through a lot of periods where I ate pretty vegan, and it just never, it was never a fully ethical decision for me until now, you know, moving out here and doing this and being with the animals and all of that stuff. Even
great.
though veganism, it was kind of, you know, a part of my life for a long time, just relatively. So yeah, that's kind of my journey there.
I like that. Mick, why don't you ask her the next question?
So, what was the inspiration to open the shelter?
So yeah, it's I had been rescuing dogs and working with domestic shelters for a while in St. Pete, and had this foster dog named Boyd. And he was the ugliest, most beat down, mangy pile of dog you had ever seen. Fully thought that he was going to just kick off at any moment. Sweetest dog, and had him for a long time. You know, most of my fosters had been quick ones, puppies, and easily adoptable dogs. And Boyd was not that dog. He looked rough. He looked mean. People, you know, just generally shied away from him. He was even on TV at one point, didn't get adopted. And I kind of had this connection with Boyd where it was like, some animals don't get adopted, you know, some animals don't have a place. And so at the same time, I was seeing, you know, pigs and chickens and goats come into the domestic shelters because they couldn't find any place to go either. Wow. And so kind of a discussion of like, what can I do? You know, what can I do for all the animals over the years that I ate or that I, you know, exploited through my consumer habits or whatever. I just it seemed like a way to even out my karma, I think. And so we moved out here. I was married at the time, and my son and my ex-husband and I moved out here to Arcadia. And it's 5 acres, and then I rent 5 acres next door. So it's 10 total. And like I said, there are about 85 animals at this point. And it's, you know, goats, sheep, pigs, cows, chickens, ducks, just kind of a mishmash of everything. Eric, the tortoise, he's giant. Still have a lot of dogs. So yeah,
is that a picture of Eric on your t-shirts?
It is, yeah. That's Eric.
That's awesome.
Eric is a sulcata tortoise. He's an African sulcata. He weighs over 200 pounds. He's a big
Holy
guy.
cow.
Wow.
And he's only about 16 at this point, I think. So he's going to be around long after I will. He'll have to be in my will.
How long do they live?
Like 100 years.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
They're like trees.
Yeah. He's
That's
a big
crazy.
He's bulldozer.
You should send a picture to me. I want to show my son. He loves turtles. Tortoises, turtles.
There's a bunch on Instagram. You can like scroll through and see the video. There's videos of him eating weird things. And
I was going to give you props for that. Like your Instagram social media game is really strong. Like I love how you show all the animals and all the cool. Do you head that up? Like do you take all those photos and everything? Good job. Oh yeah, you're a photographer.
I was. Yeah. Yeah, I was.
Well, it shows.
Yeah. So yeah. Shelter. Now for the past 2 years, I've been running shelter alone. And I have a board of directors that is majority female that I love. And they help me make some of the bigger decisions. And some of the financial decisions, and my CPA helps me with the books. And then I have 2 employees, caregivers. I have to work full time to be able to afford to live here and have the property for the animals.
You said you're a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I need people to be here for the animals as well. I have those 2 paid employees, and then everything else is me. So I do all the weekend care. I do the social media. I do fundraising. I do all of the nonprofit end of shelter. So it's a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And you do the Etsy page, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Everything,
page?
all the merch is shipped from here. So you're getting soap that I made or t-shirts that, my screen printers put together for me. Yeah. I do
now,
that
are
too.
you redoing the Judge ripoff one? That's my favorite.
People ask all the time. I don't know. I have a new one. I made a graphic of Pete. He's my pig who doesn't have a bottom jaw, so his tongue's out. He's kind of crazy looking. So I'm
it's a photo?
Yeah, it's from a photo, but kind of, designy.
Okay.
So I made a graphic for some new shirts, which
that's cool.
should be coming along. So yeah, people have been begging me for shirts. I've had a couple of artists that were supposed to do some new art for me and just kind of fell off. So I'm trying.
Yeah, your designs are really cool. I like them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those I didn't make. So I have a hard time because my ex-husband was heavily involved in hardcore and was a part of the sanctuary for the first, 2 years. And
that's how I found out about the sanctuary.
Yeah. So me not being straight edge and not being super into hardcore, I often struggle with the support that I receive from the hardcore community and from, the vegan straight edge community. And I'm incredibly grateful for it, but I also don't want people to think that like it's me, I don't want them to support.
But it is you now.
But I don't want them to support because they're like, oh, it's a straight edge sanctuary. I'm not.
Yeah, I know. But look, I got into it because of Mike, right? But I kept at it, kept supporting by merch, whatever, like because of what the sanctuary does. It's what you do for the animals, That's huge. I don't think it has anything to do with the subculture. We didn't ask you on because it was originally rooted in hardcore. Like you said, behind the scenes, like you didn't know if, if the hardcore podcast was for you. And I was like, dude, we just really want to know about your journey and your story. Like, that's the most important thing to us.
Yeah.
So I think more people want to hear your story. Like when you posted your story, I think that touches more people than if you post a Judge ripoff, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's huge. So good job.
Thanks.
Keep being real. No, for real. Keep being real. A lot of people aren't real anymore. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
This world is so terrible. We're so terrible to each other.
I just always want to be clear. You know, I always want people to know exactly who they're supporting and exactly what they're supporting. And it's really important to me to be transparent. And that's why I try to be really honest about how hard this work is and how, you know, I think it's going to be over every day. You know, I think the money's going to run out. I think that I'll be just completely exhausted. Like you know, emotionally, it's really hard. Physically, it's really hard.
Well, and there's a lot of naysayers too, I noticed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's probably mentally exhausting.
I live in the middle of beef and dairy country and FFA and 4-H. And, you know, it's hard to see that kind of stuff every day. You know, people posting in the local groups how they have pigs for slaughter or, you know, just all the blatant cruelty that you see living way out in the middle of nowhere in Florida is hard to
Good
deal
old
with.
Florida.
And, yeah. And people don't necessarily like me out here, you know. I live as a woman, I live here in the middle of, you know, nobody would hear me scream for sure if somebody decided that they were tired of me saying saying that it was wrong to hurt animals. You know, like people there are people here who don't like so, you know, safety is a concern for me and for my son and things like that. That, you know,
I think that's
hard.
nuts. That's the same thing as like the straight edge crews attacking people for not drinking and smoking. It's like, why can't we just live our lives and do our thing and just, you know, care for each other as human beings? Like,
I think it's like when you make your living exploiting animals and somebody says that that's wrong, you know, that threatens your sense of security and your sense of values, right? Because I don't believe in those things. And if they don't believe in the things I believe in, then that's a problem here in Florida. So yeah, it can be, you know.
But you're responding in the right way, I feel like.
Yeah. I don't know how I'm responding.
With the shelter. You're responding to what you see and how people do these things to animals with your shelter, with a kind, cruelty-free shelter.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. You're using your actions to speak out your words. So it's cool.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
Right, Mick? We both think
That's
it's
right.
awesome.
So what kind of care do you offer, you know, to the animals? Like what's a typical day at the shelter like? Like what kind of care do you do?
Yeah. So, you know, on a day that it's just me, like on a weekend, so every other weekend I pick up like a truckload of produce, and that, you know, is donated, but then like has to be put away and then doled out during the next couple of weeks. I will make sure that we're stocked on feed and hay, do all of those kinds of errands to make sure the week can run without me here during the day. And then I go around and I take care of everybody. You know, everybody gets fed, everybody gets new water, everybody gets sunscreen and
sunscreen.
Yeah, pigs burn in Florida. So
wow.
The pigs get sunscreen every day. The big pigs anyway.
That's crazy.
And yeah.
Do they like it?
They do. Yeah.
Okay.
They don't mind it.
That's good. I think it would seem like it would be like a massage, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
A pig massage.
It's a nice bonding thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
And then, you know, some of them are on special diets, and some of them have meds and some of them have injuries from various times, you know, like just animals don't have a lot of sense.
Oh, wow. That's a lot to keep a track of. I didn't even think about all that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you think about having a dog, right? And like maybe a couple of times in your dog's life, they're going to hurt themselves, or they're going to eat something they shouldn't, or they're going to do whatever, and they're going to have to go to the vet. And you're going to spend thousands of dollars, and it's going to be ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And then you multiply that by like 85, and then you add in like
Dang.
all the different species, right? Because not everybody gets the same kind of care as the other guys. So it's really difficult. It's hard to take care of this many animals of different kinds, for sure. And it's
Wow.
nearly impossible to get vet care for animals like this who, typically a farm vet is going out to animal ag operations, and those animals only live, 6 months, 9 months, and then they're slaughtered. So lifelong care is not something that normal vets know how to do for farm animals.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So there are, I have some on pain meds for arthritis, and, we have to make sure that everybody's like at an acceptable weight, because it's hard to keep weight on older animals. And it's just hard to get a vet to come out and care for this many animals. So
I'm sure.
It's been really difficult for me, because I'm the one who then has to do that care. I'm vaccinating, I'm trimming hooves, I'm giving out meds, I'm doing all of it. And I'm not trained to do any of that. I'm just learning as I go and doing my best. So it's really stressful. It's really difficult. And it wasn't always like that. We had vets in the beginning who worked pretty closely with us. And then, that it's veterinarians are quitting and walking out in record numbers, because that job is so stressful. So
Really?
A lot of people around here have retired. A lot of people have stopped.
Like farm vets are stressful?
Any vets have one of the highest rates of suicide in the known professions. Yeah.
I'm learning so much, for real.
A really tough job.
That's
vets
crazy.
And vet techs are,
Did you know that, Mick?
I did not know that. No, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
It's super high stress, like people get really emotional about their animals, and you see things that are pretty horrific in some cases, and they just really, they work so hard and are, maxed out. And I appreciate the vets who come here so immensely, but I know that it's really difficult for them to do this level of care, because they're just not trained to do that for farmed animals. So
wow.
That's been a big struggle for sure.
That's crazy. Your life is just completely packed then. You got basically 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, I do.
Maybe even more.
Yeah, well, and I'm a mom. So,
that is most definitely a full-time job. Yeah. So you have 3 full-time jobs. That's nuts.
Sometimes my kid comes down and hangs out with me from his cave. So, he's almost 15. So, he's in that.
Oh,
in that,
I know. Yep.
Got myself in my room era kind of thing. So.
Yep. Teenagers know everything.
Yeah. No, he's a good kid. He's a really good kid.
That's the age group I'm not looking forward to. When my son turns 14, 15, 16, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, honestly, it's been the hardest thing for me, because I was always like his person. I stayed home with him for the first 4 years. I worked at home so that I could be with him. And then, he started school and I started teaching because I wanted to have the same schedule as him. So we were together all the time. And, he kind of grew into that age where it's like, he doesn't really need me much at this point.
Is that hard?
It's incredibly hard. It's the hardest time as a mom that I've ever had, for sure. It involves a lot of like, just stepping away from everything that feels comfortable, and that's difficult when you love somebody, for sure.
Yeah, for so long you got that little buddy, and then it's not really. I
Yeah.
mean, it is still your
And
little
he's
buddy,
like,
but
"Mom."
yeah.
Yeah.
But he's like, get away from me, Mom, Dad.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
so lame. I hear that a lot.
Oh,
You're
man.
so lame.
Mick's not there yet, but close.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
My daughter just turned 10, so
Yeah. You got a couple years.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Man, can I ask you this, because we share this same thing? And this sort of hit me a little bit. Like, in your story, you shared and said that you have ADHD. Can you explain to people how this affects everyday life and what living with ADHD looks like? Maybe you can explain it a little bit better than I ever could.
I don't know if I can explain it well. I never knew what was wrong with my brain until just a couple of years ago. Really, I connected some of those dots, and I was like, "Oh, okay." I have, it presents differently in females, obviously. So for me, it has been an incredible fear of failure. It has been, I overachieve to prove my worth and to avoid, being abandoned, basically. And some of this is like my trauma as well, so it's all like mixed in, right?
Yeah.
I have pretty heavy social anxiety, and I have a running, kind of negative self-talk track that just kind of works against me all day long, every day of my life. I'm also really good at managing tasks and people because I have to try so hard to do it. And I have always been really, good at keeping 17 million things in my head that I know I have to do, and making sure everything gets taken care of. Obviously, like I end up exhausting myself over and over and over again. But yeah, it's just knowing about it, I think, is helping me. I've been reading a lot, and one of the things that really hit me very hard was that people with ADHD don't have access to like the mundane rote task parts of their brain, right? So you can get up and have a cup of coffee and get ready for work and get out the door and not really think about any of the things you're doing, right? Like most normal people can just start their day and not really be thinking about a whole lot of anything. For me, I get up and my brain attaches rote tasks to the emotional centers. So what happens there is that your brain uses things like guilt and shame to motivate you to complete tasks. So I get up and I'm like, you
that's heavy.
lazy. Yeah. I get up and I'm like, you lazy jerk, like you got out of bed 3 minutes late. So now you're not going to feed the dogs on time. You're not going to get out of the house on time. You're going to be late for work. Everyone's going to hate you. They're going to think you're chronically just uncaring about your job, and you're going to get fired, and then you're going to be homeless. And like, that's the running track, right? Because that's how your brain has to motivate you to get things done. And knowing that, like, I was like, that's my problem. Like that sums up my
crazy.
life right there.
So you deal with that every day.
And so, yeah. No, like every second of every day, there's never rest because your brain is constantly making you feel guilty about all the things that are on your list. Right?
I wonder if
Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
your list exists in the back of your head, right? All the things you have to get done. And when you're like me and you have like 17 billion things that have to get done, you can't just sit down and relax. You know what I mean? Like,
is it hard for you to delegate it to other people?
No. I think if I had people that I could trust to do things, then I could delegate to them all day long.
Okay.
My one caregiver, like,
so it's not a control thing.
No, it's not control. It's just that, of course, sometimes it's easier for me to do everything myself, and sometimes it's easier for me to just get through it. I separately have never been the kind of person who really will ask for help, because then I think that makes me a burden and invalid and able to be left behind, right? That's like,
oh man,
the trauma. So I tend not to ask for help. But if the help is there and the help is capable, then yeah, I can delegate all day long.
So the trauma adds a little bit more extra to the actual ADHD.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. My abandonment trauma is pretty heavy. So, so I have to fight that too. But, I think that just knowing a little bit more about the way that my brain works, makes me feel a little bit better, because I was always told that I was crazy. Because hyper emotionality is a big part of being a woman with ADHD, and that level of emotion, I feel like I feel on a different level than a lot of people feel. So whether it's like deep happiness or deep sadness, it is very deep. And I sometimes don't relate to other people because I don't understand the way they're experiencing the world, because it doesn't seem like it's the same as my experience. So I often have trouble with interpersonal relationships and like maintaining.
Trust me, everybody does.
Yeah. I mean, do they though? I mean, I see these people who like have.
Maybe it's just people with ADHD. With like us.
I think it is. I think it is. I don't understand like how you do that, like how you have a million friends that want to talk to you all the time every day. Like I don't know how to be that person. And so it can make you feel really isolated for sure. Just to feel different in that.
Is it cool if I speak on my behalf from it?
Of course.
Like,
please.
I think so. It's weird because I'm like, Mick has to navigate me a lot because my brain goes at 1,000 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Like he can attest to that. Like he'll get like messages, and if he doesn't check it for like an hour, maybe like all of them will conflict each other and be like, never mind. No, let's do this. Like my brain will just keep going. And if I don't get it out onto something, it's like, oh, I'm going to forget, or it's not there. Like we've talked about this before, but we have this hockey group, and I'll like, it's sort of, you said about your emotions. I'm sort of the same way in a way, because I'll be watching this hockey game and I'll go through a valley of emotions, and I'll just be texting like, oh shit, oh fuck, oh they scored, yeah. Like I'll be like doing a play-by-play in text, and they're like, what are you doing? Like, it's just how my brain works, But you said trauma plays in it, and growing up, like we couldn't talk about emotions or how we felt and stuff like that. So I'm even like super shut off to that today with certain people, with people I'm really close to. It's weird. Mm-hmm. So when you said like your trauma plays differently in your ADHD, I was like, that's interesting. So thanks for sharing that.
Of course, like our traumas shape us, our traumas change our DNA, our traumas are, a part of us. Yeah. And so, I think for guys with ADHD, a lot of it is the, hypermental stimulation. It's the attention issues and things like that. For females, it's internally versus the external, where you're like texting 100 times a day. For us, it's inside. And it's really like torturing ourselves, which is
so it's complete. So it's almost opposite of each other.
Yeah, it is almost.
Okay, so we do it externally, and women do it internally. That's cool. I mean, it's
That's
not
the
cool, but it's
tendency.
crazy.
I mean, there's different kinds of ADHD. So like,
sure.
obviously some of us have it manifest in different ways, but that seems to be like the general tendency that I've read about is like, we take it all in, you guys put it all out. And so you're the kids who are hyperactive, and then we're the ones who are really quiet and get our work done and don't make waves and don't get noticed. So like, of course, I didn't get diagnosed. I got really good grades. I was quiet. I was compliant. I worked extra hard, and that was because, I had to compensate, and I had to do things differently and make my own pathways to cope.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that happens for a lot of girls, especially, is that it typically will manifest in like anxiety disorders because, that's the part that people see is like our hyper emotions versus like the attention issues.
Mm-hmm. I still have attention issues, but it gets better as I get older.
Yeah. I mean,
knows that.
you learn how to cope, you make workarounds and you figure it out.
Yeah. I just need to really figure out how to like not shut down when super important issues happen. Like I don't know how to navigate that. It sucks. And I'm 42 and I'm like, when am I going to learn?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No. Yeah, I know.
And Mick over here is a therapist and is like the most super chill dude I've ever met.
Whatever.
Well, come on. Mick's a good guy to have in your corner for sure.
Yeah.
But Mick, throw that question at her.
So like how can folks listening and hearing your story about the shelter and everything, how can they help? Like how can they like partner with you and connect and help out with some of the stuff that you guys got going on, talking about going and getting a whole truckload full of food and bringing it in? Like what can they do to help?
Obviously the needs here are constantly financial. Donations are covering 100% of expenses because my salary can't cover any of it. So, if people are able to donate or even like to run fundraisers, a lot of people will, auction, bands will auction off a record or a t-shirt or something that is desirable in the merch collector world, and donate those proceeds or run a specific shirt for a week or two and donate that. That's always appreciated, and that's one of the ways that like hardcore and straight edge show up for me is like they consistently run things like that help me cover expenses that are daily and gigantic. So
that's cool that they show up.
Yeah. And that's part of it for me is like my gratitude is always there for those scenes, even though my relationship with it is complicated. I am always very humbled when anyone is kind to me, but when those guys come out of the woodwork or you've reached out several times over the years and been a supporter for a long time. So it's just when you see people's names in the donation boxes coming through over and over, it's really, it means a lot because it's hard times when it comes to fundraising. A lot of grants and opportunities are not there anymore after COVID and after.
Yeah, and people are struggling with inflation.
Just the financial crisis and stuff like that. It's been really bare bones. And it doesn't stop here. You know what I mean? Like I have to fix fences. I have to feed everybody. I have to vet them. I'm still cleaning up from the hurricane. I was in Hurricane Ian for it was like over 10 hours of 100+ mile an hour winds.
Oh my gosh.
And flooding rain that was insane, and there was a lot of damage to the property. All the animals were miraculously okay, and we were okay, but it's been super traumatic to like try and recover from all of that. And so yeah, any financial support is always the number one thing. I'm in the middle of nowhere, so I used to have a pretty solid crew of volunteers who would come out and, just help me clean and do some things for the animals and little small construction projects and stuff like that. Most of my core group has moved away or just moved on to other things, and so it's pretty lonely around here right now. Sometimes I need help with like construction type things. Anything that I don't have to pay someone else to do, obviously is diverting funds to the animals. So even things like cutting grass and, trimming trees and building little animal shelters and things like that. Like any of that stuff that people want to help with is always welcome. And yeah, just, if somebody could go and get the produce for me, that would save me an hour, it's like stuff like that. But I'm really far away from like everything. So people have to drive an hour to get here, and it's a commitment, like I really would love to have people who come regularly. It's hard when people want to come one time, because then I have to like kind of train them and get the work done, and it doesn't always work in that amount of time. So it's hard if I can't get people to commit to more than, like just the one day. So yeah, mostly it's money. Any organization like this, like there's no return on keeping these animals alive, right? Like I'm not selling them at the end and making the money back that I spent on their care. Like they just exist. And so, the model itself is unsustainable if there is not financial support.
So hard.
Isn't that a bummer? It's such a bummer.
Well, it's so great what you're doing, but I honestly didn't realize how incredibly stinking hard it is. Yeah. It just sounds so hard. Like this is your life. Like,
yeah,
oh man.
I'll be completely honest and tell you that I would never, ever, ever have taken this on knowing that I would be doing it alone. Ever.
But now you feel the need to keep it going alone because you want to finish what you started.
I made promises to the animals. Yeah. And it isn't for me, it's for them. And selflessness comes at a price. And I'm kind of just going until I literally cannot.
Yeah, it seems like it would be hard on every single relationship in your life.
Yeah, it is. I don't get to spend enough time with my son. I don't have the time and bandwidth to have any kind of like romantic relationship. I don't have time for friendships.
Yeah, that'd be like your fourth job.
Yeah. Yeah. I very rarely get to see anyone, even if I have a couple hours to like drive somewhere, spend some time with friends and then drive back, like that's also exhausting because then I'm driving and
yeah, I'm sure.
hanging out socially. And then, I'm just even more tired.
And with your anxiety, you're probably masking it a lot, right?
Yes, for sure.
That's exhausting.
I have my mask on.
Yeah.
All the time.
My wife and I both struggle with social anxiety pretty hard. That's what really drew us together. Like we're like, oh, that, and we both hate the beach. So that was cool. But like because I've been in relationships where the other person is like super social in any situation, and it's just they're like, my friends think you're a jerk, and I'm like, I just can't deal with it. I can't
Yeah.
handle it, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like
Yeah,
super outgoing with people I know, but people I don't know, I can't do
Yeah.
it.
I've gone through that for a long, long time. Been the one that, was it would take me a week to like clean the house if I knew somebody was coming. And then when they were there, I would be on edge and feeling judged and, like all the things about
Yeah,
welcoming people
that
into
sounds
your
like my
home.
wife.
It's like, it's hard. And so for, to be in a relationship with anybody that's like very social and has a lot of friends, it's like you just constantly feel like a disappointment because
Yep.
you literally cannot make your brain function in any other way,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's tough to be in that dynamic for sure.
Mick, ask a question that I'm interested in hearing the answer to.
So what's the future look like for the sanctuary?
She sort of answered it, right? You're just going until you can't anymore, but
yeah, that's kind of where I'm living. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I'm in a weird place where I want something in my life to be for me. And I'm struggling to find balance, and I'm struggling with working 2 jobs, and I'm struggling with a lot of things. So, again, it comes down to support and donations. I would love to just do this job and just work with the animals and just focus on outreach and welcoming people into the sanctuary to be with the animals. And I would love to only do that. The problem is that I have to pay for this place. And so I would have to have the ability to support us all from donations. And currently,
that can be exhausting also, right? If that's the only way that's coming in.
Yeah, because then I'm constantly fundraising and constantly worrying about, if I'm not working another job and the money stops coming, then where am I?
Yeah.
So I've been wrestling that, for a long time, and hoping that money would come. I'm just hoping that one big donor, will see me someday and be like, this is the one I'm going to support. And here's, $100,000 for the year. And that plus your other donations should take care of you, know, and that hasn't come yet. And so I'm begging for $5 and $20 and, just trying to cobble it all together. And yeah, so I don't know what it looks like. I want to give them the life that I promised them. I don't want them to go anywhere else. I don't want them to be unsafe. But I don't know how to actually keep it going for that long. I don't know how to do it. So I don't know. I guess the future is I just keep doing my best. I guess that's.
Well, I love your honesty about it.
Yeah.
I mean, so like in the social media world, like so many people just put on their best face and show you all the good and everything that they're accomplishing. But that's just part of life. That's not all of life, So sometimes it's good to hear people like yourself just be like, look, I'm downright struggling. I need help, because there's a lot of us out there that feel the same way, and sometimes we don't notice that because all we see is smiles and,
And I do. I think that I'm a little more honest than a lot of sanctuaries. And a lot of sanctuaries have a lot more support than I do. but I think I'm pretty, a lot of people tell me that they enjoy the social media because I tell the truth about it, because I show them how difficult the decisions are about, I had to let go of two of my cows fairly recently because they were both struggling with mobility issues and pain, and the decision to do that is enormous and crushing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so, I want people to see that, like, it's not just happy animals. It's like, it's animals that also struggle, and giving them choices and listening to them is also, a really difficult part. And just the money, I try to be honest about how far we can get on the donations that are coming in, and what we need, and all of it. Like, building a picnic table by myself is hard, and I I try to tell people, like, the hard things, because I think it's important to see that there are people who love animals in a way where they're willing to do hard things for them as individuals, and to help them exist. And, it's not, the sanctuary right now is not the way I wanted it to be, but the animals are really happy, and, they love their lives, and they exist in a safe bubble. And that's the point, right? Because
Yeah.
it has to be, people have to see that, sanctuaries are a viable method for change. They have to see that people are changing their minds because of what they see in sanctuary. They recognize that pigs are the same as their dog because they see them play with the ball and get silly and run around.
Yeah. Yeah. Has Discovery done a show on sanctuaries yet? We should reach out to them, Nick.
So. I don't think so.
Hey, we got a pitch for you guys.
Yeah. It would be an interesting, Barn Sanctuary had a show for a while. Dan McKerna had a show on one of the Animal Planet or something for a while. But yeah, it's like you said, I don't think a lot of people realize how difficult it is to do this work.
No, I didn't. Clearly, yeah.
And so I guess the message for me on social media is like, hey, this is hard. Can you please help me? Because I think it's worthwhile,
Yeah. Except the more you talk about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, could I do that? That sounds extremely hard. And work a full-time job? I don't know.
Yeah.
That sounds exhausting. That sounds like something you could do for a weekend and then be like, I did it,
Uh-huh.
But for what you're doing it 2 years on your own right now, but how long did you do it before with your ex-husband?
It started in 2019, April of 2019. So it's been 4.5 years.
Yeah. Wow. It's a long time.
Yeah. Dang.
Yeah. There are days that I physically work so hard that I just like fall on the couch and can't move. And there are days where I emotionally am so toasted that I can't even form sentences. Wow. It's all encompassing, this work. And
hopefully this makes people think about their lives.
Yeah.
And is your life actually that hard? I don't know. Is it? Mine isn't. That's crazy. I thought my life was a little bit complicated, but that's
yeah.
That's
it's
nuts.
the ADHD helps me keep track of all the things.
Yeah, like when you're talking about like doing all the pills and the shots and all the different diets and stuff, I'm like, that's crazy. You got to have a log for that. Like I'm sure after a while you memorize it, but it's like just seems
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's insane.
Well,
Yeah.
on a lighter note, if you're into coffee, what is your favorite coffee spot and favorite types of coffee? Mick and I
All
have
right,
to ask
so-
because we're the Coffee and Hardcore podcast.
Right. So I actually was a professional barista in my
Oh,
college days. I used to be really into coffee. I don't know. It was a local place in Lexington. You know, it was a coffee house that was there. It's still there. It's been there for decades. And I was, in art school and angsty and a barista. So that was like my thing for a while.
those go together.
Yeah. It was a whole package kind of deal. So I have great respect for coffee, and now that this is so embarrassing. Now that I'm like exhausted all the time, I get up at 5:30 and I drink instant Cafe Bustelo,
Oh no,
like in the consistency of tar,
Nice.
that'll grow hair on your knuckles.
just so I can function and get through the day.
Oh man,
I'm sorry. I apologize for
Hey,
that.
I mean, Bustelo is not bad, but the instant, woo.
yeah.
I don't know about all
Listen,
that.
Yeah.
there's been times when sometimes they come in like you can get them in sticks, like the
Yes.
you
Yeah,
just rip them and stick them in there and mix it up. There's no shame in that. I've done that plenty of times.
I know. There's no shame,
it's-
but
I
it's
mean-
just brutal.
Well, it's also like I only need a cup. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna brew.
I don't know what you
hot
mean,
every
but
day.
I'll shake my head. We drink like a
I only
pot a
have
day, Mick and I.
time. Yeah, I only have time for one cup before I leave the house. So it's like
Makes sense.
I can't like sit around and enjoy the pot. If I could, I would just brew something and be happy. But
Yeah.
it's necessity for me. And as far as like going out to the coffee places, that's absurd.
Yeah, we don't really do
I
that a
don't,
ton. It's expensive.
Yeah. There is a place called Project Coffee in Sarasota that has a lot of vegan options that I've been to a couple of times and appreciated as a
You know what I think we should try to do, Mick?
What's that?
We should try to reach out to Jacob. So Jacob sponsors this podcast. He's a vegan. He runs Oak and Crow Coffee in New York. And
Okay.
he works with like bigger hardcore bands like Agnostic Front, Madball and stuff.
Mhm.
And he did a suicide prevention coffee for the podcast. So $5 of each bag goes to suicide prevention. And then he also did for Coffee and Hardcore. We do Up the Pups. We've done 2 of them, and it raises money for the shelter dogs, no kill shelter.
Yep.
We should, if you're into it, talk to him and see if he'd be into doing a coffee for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
Those types of fundraisers are really what keep me going because my monthly donations don't cover my monthly expenses. So it's the extra stuff that, people run that really keep me in the red or the black instead of the red. So
Yeah. We'll bring it up
That'd be
to him.
awesome. Yeah, totally.
cool.
We should.
Thank you.
All you'll have to do is just come up with like what you want the front to look like, like what you want the label. Just
Okay.
say, we'll talk about all that off. No one needs to know that.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good.
All right.
Any other farms, bands, coffee shops, artists that you'd like to plug? Now is your time. This is your time.
Oof, I don't know. I always feel weird doing this because then I'm gonna like forget people and
Always happens. Yeah.
make somebody mad or I will say that like I will shout out every single person who has given $1. I don't have time physically to write thank you letters and to correspond with donors very often. And so I tend to post pretty often about how much I appreciate the support that I get, but I don't always have the time to do that individually, which it really hurts me to not be able to say thank you to each and every single person. So yeah, I will certainly shout out everybody who has supported Shelter over the years and who has made the work possible. Because I wish I had all the time to write you a note and send you stickers and give you my
I'm sure they
deepest
know that.
gratitude. Yeah. I wish I had it, for sure. So that's my shout out.
Mick, do one of my favorite questions, the closeout question.
All right.
Let's hope she's got something for us here.
Yeah, this is always our last one. So, what is your guilty pleasure? What is it that, the TV, it could be a TV show, a book, or music, anything that like
that I don't want people to know about.
Yeah, pretty much. Like everybody always says,
Yeah.
I don't have one. I'm like, yeah, you do. Like, what is it if people knew you listened to or watched or read, it would be embarrassing.
Um,
I love this question, by the way.
Yeah, this is, I was trying to, you guys sent me the questions. I was trying to like think of something that would, be really good. Cause I like a lot of nerdy stuff. Like I'm not cool by any means.
There's nothing wrong with nerdy stuff.
Yeah, I'm not a cool person at all. So, I have this weird tendency to watch the same shows over and over and over, and kind of listen to the same music that I've listened to for 30 years. And it's hard for me to branch out to new things. So I think my safe space with television is Criminal Minds.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I've never
I don't know
seen
how
one.
nerdy that is, but like Criminal Minds is my show, and I will watch it to go to sleep. Like people are getting sliced up and murdered, and I'm like, oh, so peaceful.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's it. It speaks to me in ways that I can't really fully understand, but I love Criminal Minds. And before that, it was Law and Order, SVU. Those are my two long-standing favorites in terms of television.
And they've both been around for a while, right?
They
For
have,
a long
yeah.
time, yeah.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen. I don't think I've like actually seen a full episode on purpose of either one of those shows.
Oh my gosh, you're missing out.
My wife likes
I
crime
feel sad
shows
for
like
you.
that, but
I feel a
yeah,
little sad.
I don't. It just bums me out.
It's a bummer.
I don't know. All I got to say is it was
Yeah.
a pleasure. I'm so happy you did this. So when this drops, we're gonna put the link to help donate.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make it my mission to talk to Jacob probably tomorrow and get in touch with you about the coffee end of it. He'll probably send you some little bags of coffee to try to see which ones you like the best. I'm sure he'll take it on. He's such a good dude. He's a vegan. He loves that cause. He works for a vegan deli and he runs a vegan coffee shop. Like, dude's
Awesome.
legit awesome.
Yeah.
Guy. We love him. We love him to death.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
we appreciate you so much and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Cool. All right. Well,
Appreciate it.
you don't listen to hardcore, but you listen to 90s rap. What 90s rap song do you want us to play to take us out of this segment?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Maybe like Liquid Swords, the Jizza.
Okay.
Something in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it. You
Some
down for that, Mick?
traditional
Sure.
Dayton 90s hip hop.
All right. Wu-Tang Financial. We out.
Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Life is a test, many quests to universe. And through my research, I felt the joy and the hurt. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. The basic instructions before leaving Earth. Life is a test, many quests to universe. And through my research, I felt the joy and the hurt. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. The basic instructions before leaving knowledge is wisdom. This goes back when I was 12. fears, but yo, my foes couldn't bear. I searched for the truth since my youth, and with the church since birth. But it wasn't worth the loot that I was paying, plus the praying. I didn't like staying cause of busybodies and dizzy hotties. That the preacher had souped up with lies, had me cooped up looking at loot button thighs. During the service, he swallowed up the poor, and after they heard this, they wallowed on the...
This podcast brought to you by Ring. With Ring cameras, you can check on your pets to catch them in the act.
Izzy, drop that.
Or just keep them company.
Aw, I'll be home soon.
Make sure they're okay while you're away. With Ring. Learn more at ring.com/pets.
Yo, Cosme with Wolfblitzer here. Just want to start off by thanking y'all for having us on your show. We appreciate it a lot. Wolfblitzer is a band that formed in 2017 in the northern Colorado area. We call Fort Collins our home base. I would say that Open-Eyed Paralysis, along with the rest of the songs on the record that we just released, are really just about overcoming the burden of pain and anger and hate, and really trying to make something good come out of all of that. So we appreciate y'all listening, and we hope y'all dig the tunes. Mad love. Peace.
All right, so for the first time in 4 seasons, we actually segued with a 90s hip hop song. So how about that?
It's true.
No, it's all good.
We have done a hip hop song though. We did Kool-Aid Man and
that's right.
Little John. Yeah.
I don't know
That
if it
was
was
the
the
best.
same though.
No, it's not the same. Definitely not the same. But don't forget about Little John and Kool-Aid Man.
Oh
Come
no.
on.
No. So what an episode, man. Like that was really it was heavy at some points. It was, but in a good way.
So heavy. And like I said, I don't want to make it about me, but I like to share my experiences, and I like when you do also, because then you can see it from different people's perspectives and point of views and eyes. And like, it's just weird. My wife knows this about me. Like, it's hard for me to hear people who are doing so well and working so hard and just getting like kicked down by life. Like, life kicks us all down. People suck, right? And especially here in the city in Chicago, like, well, especially everywhere now, but like since COVID, people are just so nasty to each other. And it's like, we're just making each other's lives so much harder in a life that's already extremely frustrating and extremely hard. So it was good to hear her story and to see where she's coming from and how hard of a worker she really is. She honestly, and I know I brought up my wife a bunch, she reminds me of my wife. Like, my wife is a very hard worker. She struggles with the same things. Like, she might not want me talking about that, but I won't go into detail about it. But she is such a good person and cares so much about people, in the world is just like beating everybody down right now. And it's making good people frustrated and like cranky and ornery and like, well, fuck you,
Right. And wanting to quit. And you know, so
my brain doesn't work that way because of how I'm wired. I just shut off. I don't think about like the really important things that I probably should think about. When like huge important things like this happen, I just go, okay, how do we get through the day? That's how I was wired. And I don't think that's good. I'm not saying that's a good quality,
right?
But it's a true quality, since we're on the honest train here,
Right.
So how did it make you feel about all this? Like, I'm interested in what you have to say.
No, it was good. Of course, like going through the social media of the farm and everything, like, you see real life situations and real things in your face. Like, a couple of the animals, you're like, dang, like if she didn't have them and take care of them, they wouldn't, they'd have been long gone.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And I know not everyone, here's the thing. I know this is like a super sensitive subject. I know I don't even have to say that. And I know like everyone does not feel the same way. And it's different. Like she said, it's different for everyone's. It's some people's livelihoods, that industry. And it's just hard because we don't want to villainize those people either. Because people are just people. We're all just trying to get by.
Right.
And it's tough. Like, I know some vegans will probably reach out and be like, "Oh, fuck you, dude. Like, killing's killing." Like, I get it. But I also get that we're all people, and sometimes it's the only thing that we have that's passed down to us from generations. And it's just tough. Life is tough. Life is not super black and white. It's tough.
No, it's not 1, 2, 3. It's not black and white. So
yeah, we got to meet people where they're at. Like,
yeah.
And I'm saying that for myself because I definitely don't do that enough. Because #fuck Florida, right?
Right, exactly right.
You can tell I'm loosened up now.
Yeah. Oh, so guess what I'm going to do? Like, by the time this episode comes out, it'll already have happened. But I'm excited, so I'm just gonna share it. Lindsay and I are gonna go see our good friends in Butter Truth this weekend.
You said Butter Truth at first.
I did.
Like, what? Yeah, and then it clicked.
It clicked.
That's crazy. Where are they playing?
Yeah. They're playing in Columbus at the Dirty Dungarees.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that place.
Yeah, which is a laundromat, bar, and venue all wrapped in one.
That's really cool. You gotta get them to do a shout out. You gotta get them to do that. I mean, that's crazy. A laundromat and a bar.
Right.
But you gotta give them. All you need to do is like a gym now, so people can work out and drink into the laundry.
Yep.
Yeah. You should have them do a little shout out on the record on your phone for the podcast.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, we like those.
To do something.
We like those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be a good show, and it's in a spot where, my good friend and former guitar player Roy Gowdy, his son Dean, like that's his whole scene.
Oh yeah.
And that he's a part of, and his band Sawmill's been playing there a lot.
Oh so yeah, we talked about them.
Yeah, I'm hoping to cross paths with him while we're up there. It's all cool. We haven't been to a show for a long time, and so yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Tell Sawmill we want to get one of their tracks on the podcast.
Yes, need to.
Have to.
Yeah.
All right, Mick, take us out of here.
All right, here we go.
Screwing up my karma. Ah!